Hello everyone, we're welcome to the second video in this series on handling date and time. In the first video, we saw how you can play around with the date time variable called now and how we split all of the elements into the different components of year, month, day, week, hour, minute, second, and microseconds. Yeah. But beyond that, there are other ways in which you can use date variable. We're not just going to be splitting date elements. Hardly will you need to be doing that on daily basis. Rather, you will be required to do more meaningful things. So let's start today's demo by showing us how you can create a date variable. Let's say there is a variable called I can call it sales date for sake of illustration. Now, in this case, we need to know the format in which Python captures date element for users. So the format is usually y, then it's followed by the month, and then it's followed by the day. This is the format in which it is expecting you to supply those parameters. So if someone wants to create a given date, you must know these three components, and then I can come around since I have my element here. When I come in and I open the parenthesis, you can see it's prompting me for the year component. Then when I supply that, it will prompt me for the month, then it will prompt me for the day. So let's say our country got its independence on 1960. That's the year. The month was October. The day was 1st. So this is going to create a date for me. Certainly not a sales date. It will be independence date. Yeah. So this is a complete date variable that has been created by Python, but we are using the building blocks of that date to create that date variable. So there are a number of things that we can now start doing with that date that we have. For instance, we can know for how long the country has had its independence. That's a possibility for us. So if I run this, it tells me this code was successfully executed, and it's possible for me to come in now and say, what is independence date? I'd like to see it. It will display it down here that independence date is a date that has its year as 1960, its month as October, which is 10, and its day as the first day of that month. So if someone wants to now do like a calculation of, okay, how long has it been that Nigeria has gained independence, it's possible for me to simply go into another code to first get what is today's date. So I'll say today is equal to dt.date.today. So this gives me today's date. And if you execute that, it should tell you straight away what today's date is. We can see it's 27th September 2024. But we're not just interested in displaying that value. Rather, we are interested in, like, say, age of Nigeria, if there is anything like that. So the temptation is for you to want to say today, the math should be today less independence date. And if you run this, it's going to give you the result that you want, but I don't want that. I don't want the results to be displayed in a date format. So I will rather come in and say today less independence day. It will be in days. I would like to see that. So if I display age of Nigeria, it will give me the age of the country in days. So if I'm removing one date from another date, I must be smart enough to put this element here, attribute here, to say I'm getting the result as an integer, which shows the difference between the 2 days in integer format of days. So this is the age of Nigeria in terms of its independence, but we hardly want to see the result this way. We will likely want to see it in years, and that means you will need to divide by 365 days in a given year. I'll adjust my parentheses to look like this, and if I run this, it should give me something reasonable. So this is 64.03, which is fairly correct. And if you do not want the decimal places, you can easily just go in here and say int this age of Nigeria is equal to that, and then if you display age of Nigeria again, it should just give you 64 straight away. So that's a way in which you can play around with the date element. And here I've created 2 dates. One is today, the other one is Independence Date for Nigeria. It could be any date of interest to you, and I tried to deduct one date from another. I got the result in days, but I didn't need that. I wanted it in years, and that was why I divided by 365 to get a decimal version of it, which I eventually converted to integer, and that's how we got 64 as our year. That's a simple illustration of how you can use date, within Python. Now, there is another demo that I also prepared for you. This time around, we're not just deducting one date from another one. Rather, we are having a special case like we often see in other packages like Excel, where you are finding the difference between 2 days, but you are going over public holidays or you are going over weekends, and we would like to see the difference between those 2 days by focusing on work days, days without weekend or public holidays. How do you go about doing that in Python environment? If you want to do that here, it most likely not going to work. So you need to first go into the terminal and do pip install, just hold up, pip install Python network days. I hope that's the spelling. Yep. So the correct spelling is there. So once the installation is successful, like it has done in my own case, it's easier now for me to come in here and say from network days import network days. Okay. Of course, we already have our date time previously installed. So it's possible for me to come in here and say, let's say our start date, which is like the date 1 that we are interested in, is dt.date. I can go back and use my Independence Day again, but I'm not going to do that. So let's say 2024, a date in April 15. This was my birthday, so I can use that. And then I can say stop date or end date, whichever one works for you. End date is going to be dt.date. And I can say 2024, let's pick July, July 27. It's actually, okay, let me pick July 23. It's the birth date of my younger brother. So if you want to know the difference between these 2 days, typically you use the previous approach. But let's assume, just for a second, that there were holidays between these 2 days. I'll create a set of holidays. So the first one is going to be, let me see, which one was the first holiday we had? We had 2024 May 29. Yeah, that was Democracy Day here. We equally had 2024 June 12th. That was another holiday. So you can keep it at that, and you can, add as many days as you want into that set of holidays. So in order to now get the network days between our start date and the end date, what you would do is to say days difference will be network days dot, what did I put here? Dates network days, hold on a second. Days is equal to network days dot network days into my start date, my end date, my holidays. Yeah, this is what I'm supposed to have here. And then if I want to display the result, I can say the work days between those two dates will be days dot work, days dot network days. Let me change my display. Okay, then it's possible for me to just display my work days here. So let's test what we've written so far and see how this is going to behave. So it displays our results for us. What it did was to calculate the difference between the 2 days, the start date and the end date, and it ignored these holidays that I have indicated there. And here I have the list of those days. It just lists out all the days for me, and that may not be the way you want the results to be given to you. Typically, what we expect to see is just a single figure telling us the number of days between those two dates, excluding weekends, excluding public holidays. So the workaround that would be for you to just say you like to print out the length of work days, and this should give you the desired results. 70 days, and that's what you get from that. So you can use this approach also to play around with dates, not just necessarily calculating difference between two dates as we did before when we calculated the age of Nigeria in terms of its independence, or you can come around and then factor in more scenarios like bringing in the weekend, bringing in public holidays, and trying to see the actual weekdays during which actual weekdays showing you the difference between date 1 and date 2, but you naturally won't need the weekdays to be listed for you as it did previously. If that's what you're interested in, then you don't need to find the length. This variable alone is going to give you the result. But if the number of days is what you're interested in, then you need to adjust your result this way by finding the length of that list of results that will be given to you. And I hope this is going to help you become better at handling dates as part of your elements in Python programming. Thanks a lot for being a part of this recording. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.